Yes.
In stage.
But can I come as a person sit and volunteer than doing it?
Yeah, if you want.
I want to do my life and shut down.
Okay, are we ready to start? This is a nice, chatty, active, friendly group. This is wonderful. Thank you all for coming. You know, I do a number of workshops for grad students, postdocs, faculty, around the country, around the world, on different issues. And negotiation is my favorite workshop. So I'm really pleased to be here because for most of us, it's the toughest thing to do. You find that even those of us who come from countries where negotiating in the market is a given. I come from India, we negotiate over everything, onions, potatoes, tomatoes, everything we negotiate over. I've been to Egypt and they say, oh, it's much better here. You actually sit down and have coffee and talk about it. It's developing a relationship. And that is exactly it. It is developing a relationship. So we really all need to get comfortable with the whole idea of how to negotiate for our career. Because even those of us who are comfortable negotiating in the marketplace, in the bazaars, when I give a workshop in India, they're not comfortable negotiating when there is a hierarchy with your supervisor, which is a whole different situation than negotiating with the shopkeeper, right? And so, and that is it. How do we do that in a professional way, not be intimidated by it, but really still keep a long-term relationship? I was just talking to Rachel, who said, talking about her advisor, and your advisor is your advisor for life. They're like your parents. They never go away because they're always your advisor. And even now, 35, 40 years after I finished my PhD, people will still say, who was your advisor? You know, and every time I send in a grant proposal, I type that in. Who was my advisor, right? Nobody asks about your spouse. You can get divorced and they'll be gone. Your advisor is like your parents. They're going to be with you, right? So you want to be able to negotiate with them and still keep a good long-term relationship, right? So we're going to talk about some of those things here. Can I have the next slide? So we're moving from the classroom where really there's no negotiation, right? Mostly there's no negotiation other than, can I take a makeup exam on another day, right? Okay. So we are moving from the classroom to the next one, to research. Still not much. And then we are slowly moving on, yes. In one of these roles, we're doing academic research and we end up in our job. And the next slide. So where do we learn to negotiate? And we don't. We're supposed to somehow pick this up on our own, how to do this, and we don't know how to do this. So how do we learn what's appropriate? And we often learn by looking to our, come on in. Yeah. We learn by looking to our advisors, right? Or other faculty, okay? And can I have the next slide, please? So really mostly by example. Yeah. Telling, stealing, etc. And my kids say when I talk to United Airways, when they're bumping me, this is the way I look. So there is a good way to negotiate, and that's what this is about. We're here for 2 hours, so we'll move some quickly, and then we will, Deb and I will do some role playing, and she's all pumped up for this role playing today. Yes,
I'm excited. I don't want to ruin anything though, so I'm not going to spoil it.
So when you say effective negotiation, what do we mean? Okay. most people think is asking for a salary increase. It is so not that. I'm talking about not just here in grad school, but also as postdocs or moving on for your next stage of your career, all of those times when you will be negotiating, right? And so it's not always about salary. Of course, sometimes salary is important. What it is really about engaging over differences. This is what you think, this is what I need, this is what I want to do, how can we make this happen in a professional manner? So it's really about reaching agreement on a tough subject without burning bridges. When can I graduate? I want to go to present a paper. Can I have summer funding? Can I have a reduced GTA load? All those kinds of issues that often come up in the life of a grad student. Those are all opportunities for negotiation, right? Because that's really what you're doing. How can we make this work for both of us, right? That's what we're talking about. So what are some of the issues you all have come up with regarding having to talk to the advisor, grad program director, chair of the department, the grad school, on issues? Give me a couple of examples, just so I know in my talk how I should target this. Many of you must have said about going to the conference, right? Needing funding to go to a conference. Yeah, Myra, I know. Myra works in the grad school often, you see, so I know Myra well. Yeah, going to a conference. The really touchy one is, when can you graduate and leave? Can we come to an understanding of how much more research needs to be done before my thesis is over? And by the way, I'm searching for jobs. They made me an offer, and I need to tell them what date I will join, but I don't know when I'm going to defend my thesis, right?
I have an example. In my department, there's kind of a requirement that you have to have a paper about policy analysis, but it's not very clear on the department guidelines exactly about it. And I think I have in my thesis more material for something else that will inform policy, but not. So I have to negotiate honestly for months with my advisor exactly how to write that paper because I didn't want to do pure policy analysis, but I have to fulfill the requirement. So I was scared, to be honest, to tell her I just don't want to write about this. I think I have material for something more, and it's very interesting, but she was strong about it.
Right.
And I didn't know how to tell her because I was scared. It's a power relation there, and you're told that you have to do what your advisor says if you want to graduate. But I didn't know how to do it.
I would frame it differently. When the university gives a degree in a certain area, we say degree in chemistry or biochemistry and molecular biology or something else, we are telling the world and also our accrediting agencies, what does this mean? What are the learning outcomes of the students who get this PhD degree? So it's saying something. And so if they have written that there needs to be policy, so there's some room for negotiation, it's true. However, they can't completely move away from what the degree is supposed to be. So all I wanted to say was that, yes, you're correct. It's a delicate negotiation, but it's not entirely to the advisor either, because the program and the university and everybody has already made some decisions. When we say this, we mean this, right? So, I'm not, so.
But we reach an agreement about what type of policy analysis, that it doesn't completely take away what I have done before. So, but what I learned is you have to try, because sometimes you're so scared to try it or talk about the topic. But then when I start talking to her, she also wants me to graduate. We have the same goal.
Exactly.
So Richa, we negotiate the degree of which I was gonna do it, and I think it went well. Now
Right, and those are the issues we'll be talking about. What happens if you don't engage in negotiation? When should you start engaging in negotiation? So some of those things that you experienced, which is good. So this is what we're talking about when we say negotiation. It's not about salary, it's about something difficult, uncomfortable, but you still need to engage in to reach a good solution for everybody concerned. So let's move this. Next one. So how many of you are comfortable asking and negotiating for something you need? How many of you are comfortable? Yeah. Even now, I have to really prep. If it's a tough negotiation with the provost or the president, I have to prep. As they say, you have to have your game demeanor on. You have to be ready with data, with information. There's always a little bit of tension. However, this is not to say you need to be totally comfortable, but some people will avoid it, and that does not work. So, comfortable to be productive in the workplace. How many of you are comfortable negotiating to be productive in the workplace, which makes it different, right? Yeah, much easier, right? And that's what you have to remember most of the time, even now as grad students finishing your PhD, you're negotiating about finishing your PhD, which is not just in your best interest, it's in the university's best interest, in the department's best interest, and your advisor's best interest, because we don't want students to take a really long time to graduate. We want you to come, finish, and move on with your career and do great things and give some money back to the university. So we want you to graduate quickly, right? Okay, so then there's, of course, for your own career advancement, which is a slightly different situation. And then it gets a little bit trickier, right? Because it's what's in it for me, what's in it for you, the employer, etc. So then it gets a little bit tricky. What I find with faculty is they're perfectly comfortable arguing and negotiating for students. When it comes to their own space or salary or summer support, they're much less comfortable doing that because this is for me and they don't want to be no. So why? So let's move on to the next slide and say, yeah, why not? Why are we not comfortable negotiating? Why are we not comfortable negotiating?
You don't want to risk what you have now, maybe?
Very good. You don't want to risk, you have a relationship, it's comfortable, it's smooth, you don't want this tension. Why else?
Afraid of denying? Huh? Afraid of denying?
Yes, they'll say no, they'll turn me down.
They've already turned you down. They've already turned you down.
That's right, they've already turned you down. In fact, that's the strategy, right? For them to say no, that's the strategy. That means you'll go away, I don't have to deal with it. It's a strategy. When I was chair of chemistry, this used to happen all the time. Faculty will come, push, blah, blah, high teaching load, it's taking up so much time, I can't research, and then they would sit for about 45 minutes, tell me what was not right, and then get up and leave. It was a good strategy for me because I didn't have to do anything, right? It took up 45 minutes of my time, but I didn't have to do anything. They weren't negotiating. They were complaining. Okay, they weren't saying, therefore, I want you to do this, right? They just said, I'm complaining, you fix my problem, and I was like, I didn't say a word, so I don't have to fix anything. Right? So it was a strategy. It was a good strategy for me. It worked. It didn't always work because it's not. Ultimately, it's not good for the department to have unhappy faculty. So you do want to resolve the issue, but before you go in, you should know clearly what your issue is. You should spend no more than half the time complaining The other 20 minutes, you should have a solution that you're going to put on the table for them, and then 10 minutes for them to respond. Okay, so just keep track of the watch also when you're going for negotiation. Don't spend all the time complaining. So why not? Here are some others. A little to do with my relationship. Okay, the next one. I won't get what I want anyway, which we've heard already. Yeah, the next one. I might look like not a team player. I'm being a narcissist. Yeah. It's all too stressful. Yeah. Nothing is negotiable. Everything is negotiable. Everything. So don't ever believe nothing is negotiable. Okay. So, and there is also a gender issue here. The next one. Nobody likes to negotiate. Men, women. But women really don't like to negotiate. So, yeah, let's move on here. More women say that they have a great deal of apprehension compared to men. Okay. Then men say they initiate 4 times more often than women initiating. Yeah. So men often say it's like winning a ball game or a wrestling match, whereas women say it's like going to the dentist. 30% of women say they have never negotiated at all. How many of you have never negotiated at all? Yeah? Apurva. Never negotiated. So most of you have, that is good. And so let's go to the next one. Yeah, most men don't like to negotiate either. In my family, I'm the negotiator. My husband is not the negotiator. He will, as soon as it gets a little bit complex, he'll say, Pushpa, you deal with it. Okay. So there's no, it's not like all women don't negotiate, all men negotiate. But generally, that's what statistically it says. That's what that means. Okay, let's go. Let's go to the next one. So what are the basic elements of an effective negotiation? And get some food in the back. Please join us. Okay. It is having a productive dialogue. That's how you need to go in and see it. This is not working. Oftentimes, if it's not working for you, it's probably not working for the other person as well. And it's really more about problem solving than winning. You should never go in with the winning attitude. And it is really about advocating on your own behalf. And this is where most of us have trouble. We don't know how to advocate on our behalf. But you have to look at it as how advocating on my behalf is also serving the broader purpose of finishing early, finding a job, making a presentation, increasing the reputation of your work or the university or your advisor's research group, etc. So you have to look at it, you have to look at a bigger picture, and that's how you need to frame most of these arguments. Okay. So what are the different elements of a good negotiation? Firstly, you have to first realize what is and what isn't a negotiating situation. Okay. So I remember many years ago when I was an assistant professor, got a salary increase. I wasn't happy, waited for a month, picked up my courage, went up there and said, and said, the budget has been set. It has gone to the provost. You're a month too late, Pushpa. So there was nothing that was going to happen. It was a done deal by that time. So I said, okay, which is fine. How about next year? And I'll send you an email a month before the salary adjustment are due to remind you of this conversation. And so let's keep it for next year, because you're right, sometimes the timing is bad. So what is a negotiating situation where you can get something to work, and what is really beyond the control? The state gives us our allotment, allocation for the university. That's beyond our control. We get what we get. So just be aware of what is and isn't a negotiating situation. Then we're going to go through this. First, identify what your negotiables are. This terminology will talk about this. What is your style for negotiating? You really need data. For everything you need data. Otherwise, you cannot make a good argument. So you need to gather data. And there's always drama involved in negotiation. So we'll talk about that quickly. And in between, we'll have some role playing. Yeah. So ground rules for this negotiation. Okay. Yeah. It's really going with the professional. It's a professional exchange. It's not emotional, fine, game, no crying. If you think you're crying, just get up and leave. If you think you're getting too worked up, which sometimes happens, then you can say, whoops, I had to, appointment with a student, undergrad student in the class. I have to go meet, just get out of there, don't cry. But the women don't cry. Although I've seen men cry also, but just when it's getting to be that emotional, just get out because you're not at your best. Find an excuse and say, make an appointment for next week or something and leave. Okay. So then, yeah, there should be an expectation of give and take. You're not going to get what you want because you don't know the situation. The other party is bringing something to the situation and telling you where they stand. And so expect some give and take. Yeah, really, your desire is to get to a win-win situation. How this helps me and this helps you, the advisor, or you, the department, or you, the university. And often there is always two sides to this. And really, it's all business. It's not personal. In this case, it's not personal, right? And sometimes, I've been in this university for over 30 years now. So I know almost everybody, right? So anytime I negotiate, I have to put it on the table and say, hey, I know I've known you for many years, but this is nothing personal. This is purely business. Okay, whether it is GT allocations that I'm making or whatever the issue is, or talking to the upper administration, sometimes it's just good to clear it out, saying, I know you're my next door neighbor, but this has nothing to do with that. This is really not personal. This is a business thing. This is a professional transaction we're talking about. Yeah, it's not an argument. It's really not a debate. It's not game playing. We're really not playing a game. It's not a ritual, and it's not really competitive either. It is really finding productive solution to a difficult problem. That's how it should be approached. Yeah. And it's not a one-shot deal. Next one. It's really a 10-act play. You should never go in thinking, the first time I ask the question like this, it's going to happen. If you're going that way, you're going in with a very different mindset, which is not going to work out. Then, should we do our role play a little bit here now?
Are we reading emails or are we doing the scenarios?
Yeah, so how many of you start negotiations by writing an email? Yeah, I know you're the new generation, right? Most of you write emails. Okay, so Deb, write your email to me.
Dear Chair, please sign attached letter assigning room A15 for my use starting immediately. Thanks, Professor Deb. P.S. I need this within the hour to make my grant deadline.
You know?
Right. It sounds like some of the student emails I receive, although that's usually about this one.
I was going to say, we've received student emails like this. I've received student email which says, could you please my change in my grade to a B? Thank you. It's like, what are you talking about? Does this really need a response? Or I just delete it and move on, right? So I'm going to get an answer. Totally wrong, you all recognize that. Okay, let's do number 2. She learned her lesson, now she's coming back.
Dear Pushpa, Could we meet in order to find a suitable location for my super spiffy imaging device? The device needs a 220-volt power source and access to the cryo facility. This device would enable me to compete effectively for several large grants and would allow me to continue my groundbreaking research.
Much better, right?
Yeah.
Much better, right? So you can say as a chair assistant, yeah, let me look into that. Let me see what's going on here, what she needs and what we can do, right? So those of you who respond by emails, be careful. But you know, some things, I don't think they work well with emails because you can't see the response, you can't see the emotion. So if it's tricky, I rather would go there and sit, even though it's uncomfortable, and have a face-to-face conversation. So the next one.
I'd just like to add there, I mean, email, it's really hard tone is really difficult. You may think you're doing an LOL moment, and the other person might be really thinking this is coming across too strongly or not strongly enough. And if you're writing an email when you're really emotional, it can be difficult if it's something that's really important. So sometimes like writing the email and letting it sit in your draft folder for a day can be a good strategy if it's something you want to write but you don't feel want to get those thoughts out. Sometimes getting them out is good. And then once you've gotten them all out, you can go, okay, that really wasn't the email I wanted to send. Now let me start this again with a more factual based.
And when you do that, the send button, write it to yourself, because sometimes you hit the send and you've written the right person you're supposed to go to and it wasn't supposed to go to them. Don't do that. I've done that, not send it to the wrong person, but written it to myself and saying, I just need to get this stuff out here right now. Yeah.
Well, if the negotiation is supposed to be non-emotional, then a non-emotional email medium, like, what's wrong with that?
Well, okay, so it's supposed to be not emotional, but it never turns out to be non-emotional. It often turns out to be emotional. So you're right, if one can maintain the not emotional tone and mental framework when you're writing the email also, I think it's okay. I think, however, getting a response in real time and being able to respond to that, there is something to be said for that. Okay, this doesn't work, and I can say, okay, no, sorry, this doesn't work. And then you come back a day later and say, oh, no, blah, blah, whatever it is. And then I take a look at it 24 hours later and I say, okay, something I've done. So I think sometimes a real-time exchange is also useful. It just depends on what the situation is. That's a judgment call to make, saying, does this deserve a face-to-face? Or can we settle this?
Yeah, and you just have a lot less control over what the other person, how they're going to interpret your tone. You may thought you have written a very dry, non-emotional email, and it may be that way. I mean, I've had emails that I get that make me upset sometimes, and I'll read them to my husband, and I will put a tone in them. I love to do that. And then he'll be like, what did the words really say, sweetheart? And I'll read the words again, and he'll be like, you put that tone on there. That wasn't what that person was doing. But because you're upset about something else in the whole situation, I've put a tone on it that wasn't there. And so that's sometimes what can happen with email, even when you're writing it really dry and step by step, it can end up that way. So it just depends. I mean, there's times for it, and it's good and bad. But you just need to judge, and sometimes it's the audience. Some people really prefer written communication, and you can tell you're going to get further with them. But some people really want to have that face-to-face and interaction and connectivity. So it's really it's a delicate thing.
Yeah.
There's a fine line, I think, between getting the engagement and emotional connection you need to go over those tough conversations without piquing the more extreme emotions. But
I mean, I like the second email because asking, can we meet in order to discuss this? This is the stuff I want to talk about. And that gives that person a chance to think about, oh, okay, this person needs space, they need these facilities. I'm going to have to think about what things are available and options for that. And I think that's a good way to start the conversation, so you're not just barging in their door and going, hey, I want to talk about this, because that's probably going to be as well demonstrated.
So this person then decided, let's do the in-person, right? So now I'm in my office, Deb comes in.
Pushpa, Can I have room A15 for my super spiffy imaging device?
No, Deb. Room A15 is needed for a new faculty member, John. Okay. That was my strategy. Say no, she left, I'm down, right? Well, she decided to try. A second example. Yes.
Pushpa, can I have room A15 for my super spiffy imaging device?
No, Deb. Room A15 is needed for our new faculty member, John.
But A15 is perfect for my device. It has a 220-volt plug in the corner and access to the cryo facility.
I'm sorry, but we have already promised that room and space to John for his extra special sputtering widget. It also needs a 250-volt plug and access to the cryo facility.
A15 is the only place that will work for me. You are undermining my group and my career.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Deb, but A15 is not available. Not good, right? She really wants to A15. You're doing great. A15 was dear. She really needs it, so she's going to try again. Take 3 years, they say, right? Okay.
Pushpa, can I have room A15 for my super spiffy imaging device?
No, Deb. Room A15 is needed for a new faculty member, John.
But A15 is perfect for my device. It has the 220-volt plug in the corner and access to the cryo facility.
I'm sorry, but we've already promised it to John for his extra special sputtering widget. It also needs a 250-volt plug and access to the cryo facility.
A15 is the only space that would work for me. You are undermining my group and career.
Well, I'm being more patient. I'm sorry you feel that way, but you can't have A15. However, perhaps we can arrange the room so your device fits in alongside John's extra special sputtering widget.
Well, I could run some experiments that way, but sample and preparation will have to take place in another room, and this is really going to be inconvenient. It would still be John's lab, and we'll have to coordinate so we can get our work done.
Well, yeah, this is the best I can do. This way, both you and John can run your equipment. Not good. Still, she hasn't got what she really wanted. She has a good point that both sharing will not work because they'll have to divide the time, space, time into halves and share. So she has a really good point. So take 4.
Hey, Pushpa, can I have room A15 for my super spiffy imaging device?
No, Deb. Room A15 is needed for our new faculty member, John. You can't have A15. However, perhaps we can arrange the room so your device fits in alongside John's extra special sputtering widget.
I forgot about John. I understand he needs that lab in order to be set up and succeed, but that new grant I got just allows us to purchase this super spiffy imaging device. It's going to double the productivity of my lab. A15 would be perfect with a 220-volt in the corner and access to the cryo facility. Sharing really wouldn't be great for me or John, since sample prep would have to happen in another room. And John and I would have to really carefully coordinate when we use our equipment. Are there any other options?
Yeah, I see. I understand that for you to perform the research funded on your grant, you need access to power and to the cryo facility. It would be crowded if both you and John use A15. How about room A19 on the other side of the facility? We could have a new outlet installed, and that would work for you, wouldn't it?
Well, that might work, but I don't have the funds in the grant for the renovation costs.
I see. But perhaps the department can advance some funds in return for a fraction of the overhead return over the lifetime of your new grant. Is that possible?
Well, that sounds fair. How quickly can it get done?
Your new grant begins in 3 months. I think we should be able to work out something by that time. Okay.
That was the funniest part of the whole thing. You're gonna get done in 3 months.
So just go in with a conversation. Good job, Deb.
And I think I would like to kind of return back to the
Yeah.
point too, when you think back to orientation, which is one of the things we did at the very beginning. You might remember that we talked about negotiations, we talked about conflict management, and we talked about kind of the positional approach, what I want, what somebody else wants. And what we started with was really the positional approach. I want A15 and nothing else is gonna work. And that didn't get me what I wanted. The last approach was really more of an interest-based mediation, which is what we talk about in orientation. We're looking not only at what I need, but what the department needs to be successful, and are there other things that we can do besides A15? Is there another room? Is there another space? Are there other people involved? And how can that all be managed together? So it really, what we taught you at orientation is something that really carries through. That kind of concept is really good to revisit over time.
Right.
So.
Yes. Okay, so let's move on to the next. It is a 10-act play. So at the first meeting when you go, you lay your cards, they tell you what their position is, what their cards are, right? And sometimes you can't arrive at a solution. It's good to say, okay, let me think about that. I know the situation better. Let me come back with some ideas. Okay, so sometimes it's good to just, if we can't find a solution, to just not say, accept no for an answer or leave in a half, but say, let's think about that and meet again. It's usually a good thing to never take no for an answer. You keep the negotiation going till you find a solution that works for both of you. So what are your negotiable? And this is the hardest thing I find. Most faculty don't know what the negotiables are when they join, of course. And most of you, when you go to a new job, you don't know what you're negotiating. What can you negotiate? Other than salary, what can you negotiate? Can you negotiate for a technician to help you with the work in the company? Can you negotiate for moving costs? Can you negotiate for, I don't know, health insurance for blah, blah, blah. The other day, today, I was listening on the radio where they said some companies are giving students money to pay their student loans, etc. There are just a whole bunch of things. So what are your negotiables? And without talking to people, sometimes you don't know. Can we go to the next one? First step is you need to assume that most things in our life is negotiable. So here we have a list of things. This is really for faculty, those of you who are going to go on to teach in faculty positions, course load, time on equipment, attending meetings, personal time, teaching responsibilities, authorship on papers, which applies to you as well, teaching responsibilities applies to you, personal time applies to you, attending meetings, time on equipment, family responsibility conflicts, office space, resources for department activities, salary and benefits, moving expenses, probably that doesn't, duration of appointment, a whole bunch of these actually apply to you as grad students as well. Then you're starting a new job. So starting salary, date you're starting, what facilities, space, equipment you need, again, attending conferences, travel budget, moving expenses, office furniture, computing, etc., staff support, equipment time, authorship. So these are all common things that most of you should know that one can negotiate, not always necessarily at the beginning, but over a period of time in the first year or two, whenever it comes up, and especially authorship on papers. It is such a tricky issue. It's best negotiated early. So I've written many papers with my students, and I remember thinking, some faculty are very good, and keep that in mind all the time to say who's going to be the first author, who's going to be the second, third, etc., which varies by discipline. In some fields, the advisor is always the last author, which is what is in chemistry. In some fields, the advisor is the first author, which is unusual. In chemistry, it is the first author is the one who's done the most significant contribution, and then the second, third, etc. Now, if you're collaborating with another lab, then that becomes a little bit more complicated. But as soon as you start writing, often many advisors themselves will say, let's talk about who all will be co-authors. There are different ways to do this, right? One is, how many of you have been writing papers and have had to deal with this issue? Quite a few, yeah? So it's better to bring it up early rather than later in the game about how to do that. Some people will say, let's get the main results that we're going to talk about in this paper, okay? And let's see what the story will be, because often you have more work you have done that may or may not belong in this paper. And so let's first put, and people will sometimes use index cards or different ways to say, okay, we're going to say first result. What happened when you change the mix of solvents to whatever your reagent? Then what happened when you change the temperature? What happened when you change the pressure? What happened when you mix the three? What happened when you change the catalyst and everything? So that whole story and different people have often contributed to different pieces of data, graphs, tables, whatever it is you're going to present in putting this paper together. And then once you know the story you're going to tell, you can step back and say, okay, who has contributed the most to making this paper? And some people make a decision like that. They only make the decision after they know what they're going to write about in the paper. Other people have a very clear idea going up front what it is. So at some time to say, how are we going to acknowledge the contribution of the different people and what order in is a really tricky thing, no matter what we say. It's a tricky negotiation. Unless, of course, there's just you and your advisor. That's easy. Then you're the first author and your advisor is and whatever, right? So sometimes there's another way to acknowledge this as well, right? And that is in the acknowledgement. Sometimes you say, people have contributed, but not substantially to the scholarship. They showed me how to work that equipment well. It was important that I know how to use the equipment well. It was critical for me to have that data. They helped me, and I want to acknowledge their work, and that can go in acknowledgement, right? Because it's not substantial scholarly contribution, but it is, thank you for proofing my paper, or thank you for showing us. We want to thank so-and-so's lab for allowing us to use their equipment, or training us, or something else. So there are different ways to acknowledge the different people who have made contributions. And in my experience, if you're debating whether one should acknowledge their contribution or not, it's better to acknowledge than not. In the long term, it's better to acknowledge than not acknowledge, because if they feel they should have been acknowledged and you didn't, you will lose that relationship for the rest of your career, which is a long time. So sometimes I've done that, but I don't want to dilute the contributions of my students. However, I want to keep a relationship with this group going because that equipment is useful. So I will say, okay, this first one, we're going to acknowledge you. After this, we might not, because just because we're using somebody's equipment repeatedly doesn't mean they're making substantial contributions, right? So it's just, so you negotiate through those things, okay? So all of these are things you will be negotiating with it. And Deb just negotiated space and got her space, so that was good. So, okay, so we want to do this, but let's do this later. I don't want you to break up into groups, and I'll ask you to mix up the tables and ask you to pick something you want to negotiate, so you really do it, okay? But let's just wait till a little bit later till I have covered a little bit more material. Let's go. Okay, so know what your BATNA and ZOPA is. So what is BATNA and what is ZOPA? Can I have the next slide, please? So what BATNA is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Best alternative. So what we are saying is this. I want to go to the conference. It's an international conference in Germany. It's going to cost me $1,500 to go. I don't have the money. I can either start a negotiation on this issue with not just one, because advisor, department, who knows, there are different places where sources you can get the money, right? Some from the GSG, etc. So should I have this negotiation or should I not? So what's your alternative to not negotiating in this situation that I just described? If you don't enter into that negotiation, what will happen?
You're not going to Germany, you're not going.
Yeah, that's the alternative. You're not going. She's not getting the lab if she's not entering. I don't like negotiating, but if I don't, that's my alternative. So am I okay with that alternative? I have a car at home I want to sell. I don't, but I'm just saying. So I hate that. Advertising in papers and negotiating. I don't want to do any of that stuff. So do I want to have the car in my garage taking up the space for the next year or 2 or 3 where I'm not ever going to drive it? Or do I want to get into this negotiating? I've seen people do both ways. They said, I don't have time for all of that stuff, and they let it sit there for 10 more years, and then of course they get jumped, if they jump. So that's what you should know. You should absolutely know, if you don't engage in a negotiation, what is your solution. That will tell you whether you want to do this uncomfortable thing or not. There's a lot of food in the back, and the grad school, believe me, doesn't need more food. Please get up and help yourselves to some food in the back there. Yeah. Ask yourself, what is my back now? What's the best alternative to a negotiated agreement? Often in this situation, you might say, okay, I know I can get, how much from the grad school? Jacob, these days, how much do we get from the grad school? $250, I believe. Something like $250. I'm going to go far. Then maybe I can get $250, $400, $500 from the department. Might still not be enough. Maybe I can get some from my advisor. Maybe you're getting close then. And maybe I'll put $100 of my own or whatever. Something like that. You're leveraging all your funds. So that means you're doing a number of different negotiations. And it's good to go to the first negotiator where you got the money. Right. Let's go, I've already given me $250. How much can I count on you? Then people are more willing to put money forward. So, just develop a strategy for how one does this. Okay. What are your alternatives? And decide when, below this, I know I have the car sitting in my garage. If I don't get $5,000, I'm just not going to sell it. It's not worth it more for me. I'd rather have it sit in the garage if I'm not going to get $5,000. So having the floor for what you're willing to accept, it's good to know that also. So what's your alternative? Then let's go, and let's go to the next one. It is dynamic because through the negotiation process, it changes, right? You might go in and say, could you give me $500? And they say $300, right? So then you have to again decide, well, I still have $1,000 to go. Can I make it or not with the others? And then should I go any further or not? So at each stage of this, you need to reevaluate whether the negotiation is going to get you where you want, or if it's not going to get you, do you want to spend the time on this at all? The second thing is to say, ask yourself, what is their background? What is, for your, let's say your advisor, what are the alternatives they are working with? I don't have a grant, I don't have any money. That's one, in which case it should be very difficult. I have grants, I have some money, and really I want my work presented at that conference, so therefore I'm willing to put this money. That might be their alternative to just saying no. They might want to do it because they really want you to have that professional development opportunity and for you to have experienced that, because we do want our students to go out and be successful and have all the experience that one needs to be a successful graduate student, right? And being able to confidently present papers and talk about your work is an important professional development activity for the university and for the grad school and for the students. It's part of being a researcher. So that's all of those things are things that you need to find out. What is their alternative to just saying no? So, and then depending on what you learn from them, you will need to adjust your strategy. Yeah, so that is the alternative to this. Then here you have the zone of acceptable, agreement, acceptable outcomes, possible agreement. It could be, I really need 1,500, but maybe I can do with 1,300 or 200, right? So anything over 1,200, I'll take it and go. If it's 1,000, I can't do it because it's in Germany and things are expensive. So what is your zone of acceptable outcomes? And it can be just one, 1,500, otherwise I'm not. What if it's 1,450 or 400 or something? So just make, again, the paper, as I was talking about, there was a paper in the last one where both of my students had contributed equally. And I was in a quandary. In one case, the students had worked closely on a number of projects. In one case, the first one, I said, one of you will be the first author on one and the other one on the other. Let's toss a coin. And whoever wins, we're going to put that as the first author. And we tried that, right? And it worked. But then that student graduated. The other student is finishing up the paper. And now the question was, even though she was supposed to be the first author anyway, so it worked out in that case. But the issue sometimes becomes, for me, I had to tell a different student on another occasion. I said, really, both of you deserve to be first author. So I can't. I tossed the coin and she won. So what I will do is, in the recommendation letters I write for you, I will highlight that, saying, they have contributed equally to this paper. This is a fantastic piece of work. Here are all the challenges they overcame. And however, I had to pick one as the first author, but I want you to know that she contributed equally. And if the coin had been tossed the other way, I would have picked the other one as the first author. So sometimes some agreement like that, because that's what the employer is looking at, saying, give us a sense of the contribution. Sometimes that's the way it works out. So in that case, that's acceptable. Okay, toss of the coin was acceptable. Otherwise, okay, Timothy, you can put so and so and write me that letter of recommendation, and I'm fine with that. That also worked. So yeah, just know it. So then, okay, let's move on to the next one here. Yeah, consider what their zone of agreement might be. They could give you 300, 400, 500, 600. They have a range of funds they can give you, and they're trying to figure out how much to give whom, because they have 3 other people they have promised money to. So it'll be good in one of the steps of the negotiation to know what kind of resources do they have that they can devote to you. So you have a better sense of what your negotiating issues are. Okay. So yeah, ask yourself what is the best alternative and what is my zone of possible agreement. If I get 800, I'm just not going to go to Germany to present the paper. Maybe I'll go to Orlando and present the paper. All right? Sounds like a fun thing too. So wherever it will be cheaper and the hotels are cheaper, and determine that. That's the summary of this part of it. Just have an idea of what you're doing. Okay. Then, yeah, what is your negotiating style? Identify your negotiating style. And we find that these are the common styles that are usually there. Okay? Here on the y-axis there are people who, they satisfy their own needs, in the middle, satisfying both needs, and some who are really empathic and always satisfying the needs of the other. Could be advisor, could be department chair, could be spouse, whatever. This is too compassionate is what we would say. Too compassionate for your own good, okay? So, and here, some, keep steady, need for approval, I don't want to rock the board. There are those people. And others who are perfectly willing to rock the boat and have a fight every time. So there's a range of behaviors. So here, these are the people who just don't want to engage. They want to keep things steady. So they will just avoid the whole situation. I know many of us sometimes are in this, and it's a lose-lose. It's a lose for you, but it's also lose for the university, for your presenting your work, for your advisor, for your not learning how to negotiate. It's lose-lose for really everybody. Then there are those who will always accommodate. So the other person always wins. Could you teach an extra GTA section? Yes. Next semester. Could you teach another section? Yes. After a third or fourth time, you feel like you're being a sucker, right? Because you're being taken advantage of. But you don't know how to say no. And that's not good for you or for the other person, actually. Yeah. So you always lose and the other person always wins. But for this person, they think that they're avoiding tension, but they're not. It's building up inside them. Okay. Then here it is. It's always win-lose. I win if I only win if you lose. It's not a win-win situation. I must win, and I must win at your expense, and you must lose, and only then is it a good solution. That's not a good solution either. Or otherwise, you can solve, collaborate, and say, how can we both make our things work? Okay? And really, that's where we want to be. We want to be in this gray box where for the long-term relationship, you want to be able to collaborate so that they can get something out of the situation. You can get something out of the situation. Otherwise, it's really long-term, not a win-win kind of a situation. Okay, so if you're in one of these other boxes, then you should try to get there. We've all felt this, right? How many times? Oh, geez, I should have bargained harder because that person gave it for, I don't know, $500 or whatever it was that we were negotiating about. And it was like, I was willing to pay $500. They gave it to me for $100. It's all done. Let's move on, right? But no, I should have really gone lower. Maybe I didn't have a bargain hard enough. That kind of sense of somehow, yeah. So I'm just saying, don't do that. You got what you wanted for the price you wanted to pay. They got what they wanted. Let's move on. Okay, so the next one. Yeah. It's really, really important to understand the importance of data. For salaries, especially for salaries. But no matter where you go, how much is the department giving for grad students to go to conferences? How much is the department giving? What is the teaching load, GTA load for students who are on GTAs? If you don't know that information, you just are necessarily negotiating from a really bad situation because you don't even know what to ask for. I hear this from faculty all the time, often from learning faculty, but sometimes from I didn't know we could ask that in startup package. Well, how would I know that they were doing this? Even faculty who are here now and who've been really successful, but felt that they didn't start off correctly because they didn't know how to negotiate, right? They didn't know what to ask. Can ask for this, can ask for summer salary, can ask for GTA, can ask for money to hire a postdoc, all of those things. And how do you know that? You can only know that if you have a good mentor or you ask around people who have just been hired in the recent past. Okay, what did you get? People, new faculty who have joined the university and they had just finished their negotiation, can sometimes they say, oh, I'm looking for a job, I'm going to go on the market, what should I be aware of? What are my negotiables? Can we talk about that? So it is really gathering data that is very important and there's no substitute for that. because otherwise you don't know whether you should even be asking or not asking. So get your data, yeah? They are your friends. You need to do your homework. And yeah, it's important to say it's nothing personal. It's all strictly business. And as I said, the example of the faculty who would come to my office and complain and leave without asking, you should, as they say in fundraising, the ask. Did you do the ask? You went, you had a good time with the alumni, treated you to a nice dinner. Did you ask them? What did you ask them? When do you ask them? When is it the right time for the ask? So this is where I said it can be a 10-act play, but for every act, somewhere in that conversation, you need to know when it's time to do the ask. Okay, we agreed on this last time. You said I could not have summer funding or to go to a conference. I thought about that. Now I can come up with this amount of money from this resource. Can you put some money from your side? So every time, keep in mind when you should do the ask, and don't leave without asking and expect them to solve your problem for you, because nobody will do that. Yeah? Okay. Then, yeah, be ready for some theater. People pound the table, people get angry, people just say no, people don't negotiate, they don't engage in no. All of those things can happen. None of us have been trained in how to do negotiation, right? So you can't expect the other person to somehow know this also. So there's always some drama. That's before I do this coach, this is a organization for chemists, coach. That's why the CH for chemistry is in lowercase letters, and I do workshops for them, and many of the slides are from them. So that's what that coach that shows up is. So I should acknowledge. Yeah. Yeah. Approaches to problem solving. You learned some trial balloons. Okay. Yeah, you don't have 1,500. Can you give me about 750? Say no. Okay. What is the range? How many have you given to students in the last few years? Get some information from them, how much they have given. So then you know what the range of these things are. So put out some trial balloons and get some response, rather than tell me how much you'll give, and they'll say nothing. I'm not saying they all say that, but I'm just saying for argument's sake, if you have a really bad person you're negotiating with. So, yeah, how about 500? How about 750? Put out some trial balloons and say that it's too out. I've never done that. Maximum we can do is 500. Okay, well now you know you're going to get 500. Let's start there. So put out some trial balloons. Sometimes, summing up areas, we so focus on one aspect that we forget that there were so many areas we really agreed on. Okay, so okay, you said I needed to do these experiments before I could write it up and defend my thesis and start my job in January. But I would really like to start in November. And yes, we need to do this work. How about if I finish this and write up the third paper, we can submit it and submit a draft, we can work on it when we leave. So we agree on 80% of where we are. So the differences in the third paper should be written and submitted and put in the thesis before you leave in your dissertation, or can you put in a good draft and maybe finish it up in the month or two after that, right? Especially if you're going to go out and get a job at 80, 100,000, whatever you guys make, I don't know these days, or be here as a grad student. Sometimes it's good to put that on the table also, but I will finish this work in this period of time. But I know what your faculty will say. They say, yeah, once you leave, it's really, really hard, which is true. What you think will take 1 month will take you 3 or 4 months, which is also true. I've had all of those experiences with my students. And sometimes it takes a whole year and the company where you go says, wait a minute, we thought we hired a PhD, but you still don't have your PhD. It's been a year, so sorry, we are not going to keep you anymore. And I've had that happen to a good colleague of mine when I started out in the chemical industry. She just waited. She didn't finish. She had to finish this paper. She was from the University of Wisconsin, and then Stauffer Chemical, where I worked for a few years, said, you had a PhD, you don't have a PhD. We gave you a year to finish, so we're going to fire you. So those sort of situations also happen. Just be careful. Yeah, they were right. There was something holding up. What was it holding up? She needed to. I was living in New York. She needed to fly to Wisconsin on the weekends to do this experiment. She should never have got herself into that situation. It was just really difficult. Anyway, so it's good to sometimes to say, okay, we agree on all of this. It's only whether I should stay an extra 2 months and finish the paper, or can I leave after defending and assume sometimes it's just focusing on the small difference, the 10 or 20% when we have agreed on all of those. Putting it in that perspective serves to bring it to a closure faster. Don't assume that your advisor or the chair or the grad dean is going to do it for you, because they might not know how to do it either. But you need to be aware of some of these things. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it always is. This pie is limited, and we just can't have more. Either you do the work or you don't do the work. It can be that the last couple of experiments can be done by the new grad student who's coming in and who's getting trained on this work, and therefore they can finish it for you. They can do the lab work, but you'll guide them from distance, and you'll help them finish and help them draw the data and draw the graphs and all of this stuff, right? So it could be that it could expand to. You could include other people to expand that course. You could also say, yes, I will stay in the summer and finish if you still have the summer in front of you. And maybe you have funding, maybe you don't, but so try to expand and look at other possibilities, not just the 2 or 3 that are the most obvious possibilities. Okay? So that's what I mean by expand the pie. This non-specific compensation also. Sometimes you can say, yes, I really was hoping I would not teach in the summer, but I see there is a need. Why don't I teach in the summer? But can I have the fall semester off to focus on my research and wrap up and leave? So just an alternative, because it's serving their purpose. They really need somebody for whatever reason, and it's serving your purpose as well. So it's nice to have that time where you can just focus on it. So just see, it's not really compensation, but it's doing something extra that serves both of your purposes. Yeah, this is the same thing. I will do this. How about in that space, can you do something else? So, it often happens. There's suddenly an extra lab section that you need to teach. So they're looking for somebody to teach that extra section. Okay, this semester I will do it. Next semester, can I have that thing off? And usually you can work something out that way. Yeah, sometimes people say, so if you have an option, and 2 or 3 options, but know in your mind which is your high priority, and you're not going to settle for your low priority one. Okay, but they feel good saying no to 2 of yours and giving you, so long as you got your high priority one, you're okay. So sometimes that's one way. We can do this, or this, but really in your mind you're saying, yeah, but this is the only thing that's going to work for me. The other 2 things are not going to work for me. But you know that. But they can say, no, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, good. We're all fine. So that's a strategy sometimes you might want to use. Yeah, okay. Yeah, high drama situations. Yeah. People respond to these things differently. Some people get angry. Some people get angry and pound the table also, and it's like, that's so a tantrum for me. It's like, what's this pounding the table business, right? So, sometimes it's just good to not respond because it's just heating up, right? And then so it's just like getting nowhere. So just silence. And don't be so silent for so long that they'll think you've died on them. Yeah? But just cool things down. Let's just cool things down here. Sometimes, as I said before, you think you're just so upset you're going to cry. Just say, I just forgot that appointment. I'll make an appointment with you and I'll come back and we'll talk this further. Just leave the situation. Don't let it escalate to a drama. And if the silence doesn't work, then okay, let's see what the next ones are. Always, if you feel like you can't agree, let me think about this and get back to you. That is really always a good strategy. Don't say no, don't say yes, let me think about this, because you can go back and think that, wow, that was really a good deal. I didn't think so at the time. That happens because you haven't considered all the consequences of what they were suggesting. Because you're asking for 3, they yielded on 2, the third one's not important, but you're so stuck on the third one that you can't accept that. So just, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. It's always a good way to give a conversation. Yeah, let's go back to go back and put it in writing. Thank you for your time. Email is useful here. This is what we agreed on. It's really good because people forget. 1, 2, 3. And even when you don't forget, there is misunderstanding. And so put it in writing so you have a record of what you agreed to, so then you can go back to that. Yeah, let's move on. Yeah, this is my philosophy. Just always be pleasant. You gain nothing by being angry and shouting and screaming. All you do is you get a reputation. That person, I can't talk to them. Even though you were angry once, and this has happened to me, a faculty member, Deb and I both know this fact. As soon as you bring up the name and say, they always get angry and pound the table and throw keys. That's it, it's going to be stuck with you. You're never going to outlive that. So just be pleasant all the time. If you feel like you're losing your temper, which you do many times, just say, let me think about that and get out of there. Okay, this is my philosophy. Okay. Sometimes it's just not getting resolved. Sometimes you just really do need to go to the department chair or dean. And that's fine. That's why we have Deb Charlesworth and the grievance committee. So Deb will get an email. and that's okay. And if she can't resolve it, she will send it to me. Usually she resolves most of them. That's why I keep her hired all the time, because she catches all the spears for me. But sometimes you do need to go to a higher authority and keep in mind that. Then reach a solution. Thought about it. I think maybe I would like to go and talk to the dean or the chair or something. Just let them know. Not a threat. It should never be a threat. You're just letting them know, I'm still not happy and I just really need a better resolution. So I think I will need to see what my options are by going higher. And I think that's fine. That's why we have the grievance process and grievance committees. And we go through this to say, how can we best resolve the situation? So it's okay to say we're going to a higher authority. Sometimes we will say, I think I have to go the legal route, which we know means they want to go talk to a lawyer, and we say, okay, we'll figure it out what we need to do. Okay, next. How to put out fire without burning bridges. And sometimes it's good to identify behavior and say, you are really getting upset. I see you're angry. And sometimes just identifying, I'm sorry I made you angry on this issue. Just identifying that works. I remember when my daughter was little, she was like 3 or 4, and we lived close here, and I would have had some argument in the department in chemistry, and I still mind is still blah 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 blah. I'm still angry about that. I'm walking home. I've gone home. I'm still angry. It's playing out in my head, and I open the door. My daughter says something, and I bark at her, right? Because it's not anything to do with her. It's just whatever happened at work that I'm still going out and playing. And then she would ask me, "Mom, are you angry with me?" Oh my God, it would bring me down right away, because they'd say, yeah, who am I angry about? What am I angry about? And why am I showing it on my daughter who has done nothing? I'm just so happy to see her, but I'm still thinking about this thing. So just sometimes identifying the behavior and say, see, I made you really angry. Maybe we can come back and talk another time. Sometimes, or we've agreed on 90% of this, the last 10% is still sticky, maybe we can come back and resolve it when we're both fresh another time. Something like that. Just identifying that is sometimes productive. Yeah, those are things like, as I said, just get out of there, be quiet, identify behavior, all of those things. If they're getting angry and shouting, you also getting angry and shouting, does not help the situation. Tough to do, but really doesn't help the situation. Both people are just angry and shouting. So, yeah. Some people say they count to 10. Some people, they say they focus on their breathing for 10 breaths or whatever, just to not respond in a way. So whatever the tactic is that works for you, it's good to know that and identify and say, this is the time for me to either get out, or take a few breaths, or be quiet, or something, because it's not going anywhere. Yeah. Yeah, keep the dialogue focused. So you go and ask for one thing. What comes up in their mind is, last time you did the experiment wrong, you were late for that meeting, you didn't turn in your report on time, you missed the group meeting, and all that comes to surface, although all you have asked is, can I have money to go to a conference, right? That's what is playing out in their minds. So they will, come out and say, yeah, but last time I asked you to do this, you said no, and you were late, you didn't fill in the abstract on time, and blah, blah, blah. It is good at that time to say, we can talk about all of that. For this time, can we just focus on this issue? Can we talk about this issue instead of even focus? Because that could be a loaded word too. Can we just talk about that? And we can talk about those some other time. Sometimes that serves to not bring all this other anxiety and anger they had on this meeting, which is, then you can say, okay, can you give me some money to go to a conference? And so keep that in mind. So how to keep it focused on what it is you're asking at that time, and not let all the other things, yeah, you're never helpful, you're always late. This is all different issues, whatever they are. Just stay focused. Okay, yeah? Yeah, finally, of course, when it's time to go to Deb or a mediator or the ombudsperson or whoever it is to resolve an issue, when you have to do that. Okay, so let's move on. How do you respond to different difficulties? Yeah, I think I've said this already, most of these. Yeah, really do try to understand both of your points of view and tell them that. I understand where you're coming from, and mean it too, because that's what they want to know, that you have understood their point of view as well, and therefore you're taking that into the calculation of what you're asking them. Then, yeah, I know the budget cycle is over. You can't ask for money, or this is a bad year because of budget cuts. Therefore, me coming and asking for a salary increase or an extra GTA line doesn't work because you have allocated all your GTAs to other people. Yeah, I know that. However, I'm still going to make this ask and see where we can find a resolution. So I understand your situation is what you're saying, and just acknowledge and understand their situation. Yeah? Yeah, what they say here is this. So keep the big picture in mind. Don't get drawn into this. So this is, you know, when you go out to the balcony and you look down and then you see all these shops, all these people, the car. I just came from India last week. The bus is going, the car is going, the auto rickshaw is going, everybody is jogging for the thing, and there's this one person trying to cross the road, and it's impossible for them to cross the road because nobody's there, right? So when you sometimes you stand in the balcony and look down, you kind of can get the big picture. It's a mess here, and nothing is getting resolved here. So this is what they're saying. Mentally, say, okay, I really came here to find out a date I can accept the job and start the job. I'm getting caught up in the last experiment that didn't work, the paper that is half complete, the GTA, the work that I have to do, and how I have to train the next student coming in so the work can go on without completing. But really all I want to do is get a date, right? Keep in mind that what is the big picture here. Say, yeah, we can resolve how I can train the next student coming in to do this work. Yes, we can talk about how we can finish the paper. Sometimes they're all interrelated, and you can't, but some you can just push God aside and then just concentrate on the one that you can resolve it. So just keep in mind, that's what the balcony means. Go on and see, okay, what's going on here? Get the lay of the land so you can step out. And then come back to, yeah, about that date, can we meet again? Now I know what your concerns are, what mine are. I have to tell the company or the university. Or I said 1st of January, sorry, I made a mistake, maybe it's going to be 1st of March. Let me see, let me explore that with them, come back and we can figure out what to do. So just keep focused on that. Yeah, keep it relaxed, keep it open. And yes, that's what I mean by step to the side is acknowledge their reality, understand where they're coming from, and see with their point of view as well. Yeah, this is reframe and repackage the issue. Okay, we wanted to talk about this. Now we have 1, 2, 3, we have resolved. Now this 4th one is still remaining. Maybe we can resolve it today. Maybe we can come back and resolve it. So just repackage what it is you're talking about. So I want to bring this to a close now so you can all negotiate, okay, with each other. So what's the next slide? Jacob? Yeah, stop using words that undercut your power. We all do this, and women really do this more. I know it may seem unfair, but yeah, no, don't say things like that. Yeah, I like being a team player, but I really need to get out and start my job, right? So just don't use these buts. You can just say, in fact, I like being a team player, and I would like to go and have, start my job at a reasonable time. Just substituting the and instead of the but there, even in the conversation with someone else, you'll see makes a big difference, because I'm not saying the two are contradictory. I'm saying I like being a team player and I like to graduate and start my job. I like being a team player and I can teach that section, that additional lab section. And I also need my time next semester to get my work done so I can graduate on time. So whenever you feel like you want to say but, stop yourself and say, can I put an and there as a connector, and it will change the tone of the conversation. Yeah? Yeah, don't diminish. You already know this, but I could be wrong. How many times we have said, oh, I could be wrong, right? Oh, this is just my opinion, so please don't pay attention to it. No, you totally want them to pay attention to your opinion, right? That's why you're there negotiating. So, this is probably a stupid question. How many times, every time I hear that, I kind of cringe now and say, no, there's no such question as a stupid question. Just ask you a question and it'll be fine, okay? You probably probably know more about this, but so all I'm saying is just be careful that you don't use those kinds of phrases. It undercuts your negotiating position. Yeah. Yeah. Again, don't say I think, I hope, I feel, I'm not sure, and just be careful. Okay, let's move on to the next slide now. Yeah, your posture, how you sit, holding your chin up, all of those things conveys to the other person where you're coming from. Be confident in your voice, in the words you use, and in your posture. Yeah. And if you feel like you're having a meltdown, get out. Yeah. I've said that many times because I've seen meltdowns and I see them not getting out, and I want to tell them, really, this is when you should say, I'll make another appointment with you and leave. So, okay, let's, yeah, have you seen this TED Talk where they talk about how if you assume this power positions, you feel powerful? So they say, fake it till you make it. It is, yeah, power posing, fake it until you make it. And it's an old one, 2010, but it's, 5-minute TED Talk. So if you Google it, you'll find it. It's really quite interesting. So they say after a while, you just feel more confident when you're going into this discussion or negotiation. Don't feel like, oh, am I coming in? No, just feel good, feel confident about yourself. So if you have not seen this, it's a good one. Yeah. Okay, next one. Yeah. Yeah, talk expansive. Yeah. And okay, I think we're mostly done with this now. Language in a negotiation, yes, be confident. Okay. Okay, so now what I want to do is to break you up into groups. And how many? 1, 2, 5. We're about 4 or 5 in each one. So will you two join that group? Yeah. Okay. What I want to do is to actually practice. I've given a lot of blah 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 blah. Pick a topic. I want one person to be the one asking for something that they want. I want one person to be the one who they're negotiating with, who can be your advisor or your grad program director or your department chair or dean or somebody, and make their life difficult so you can put them through the test of doing a good job. I want one person to just observe what is happening from the outside, like you're a fly on the wall, and see what's going on. And I want one person to be the coach. That is, after about 3-4 minutes of negotiating, I will say, okay, time is up. Then stop. Have the coach and the observer debrief the others and say, no, this is not the right way to ask. This is what was happening. You weren't listening. Whatever it is, try to develop a better strategy on the basis of some of the information, and that if you want it to be a give or take win-win situation. And then I'll give that 5 minutes, and then I will say, do it again. Do it again, the same thing, whatever it is you were negotiating about, and let's see how much further it goes. And then we'll have a report out from the different groups saying what you were negotiating for and what happened. So I understand that there are 5, so we can, in each table, so if we want 4, so if we want, we can form another table with some of the people there, and you can all have your negotiating. So if we do it relatively quickly, we'll have opportunity for 2 people to try that out, okay? And you will learn a lot, much more than I did just listening to me talk about it. Let us do that. Let's break up. Yes, let's break up in groups of 4. If there's a 5th person, if you're at your table, one of you will go back and join. That will be good. 3 is okay. 4 is good, but 5 is too many, because then what it will mean is that you're not getting the chance to negotiate and just take participate.
Here, maybe, and then they can stay where they are.
Sure, okay, that's good. There are three, that's good, because we at least need one to do the negotiating, to initiate, one to respond, and one to be the coach. We need at least three. Was okay, but 5 is really not very useful. Okay, all right. Should we start? Okay, think about what it is you want to negotiate.
What are we?
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out, we're gonna have to negotiate what we're negotiating.
Yes. That's right. And really negotiate what you really want. What you really want.
We're trying to get around. That's like the typical.
I'm open to yes. Okay, so this is like the real situation, not something else. Wanting to go to a different university.
So in order to get that,
A part of the money.
I feel like I can be either, but I don't particularly care.
Yeah.
Coming more to be done. I'm ready to be ready.
Do you guys want to do one of them or?
Should I? What's your job?
I was talking about being one or the other.
Ah, okay.
Alright, well, boss man John, I've been working here for 2 years now. I brought in $500,000 and I feel strongly that I'm deserving of a raise. Loves the industry. So I'd like a raise of $15,000.
She's going to stop for it.
I'll get it.
Oh, come on. I feel like these are made up numbers. I want to see the facts. Yeah, that's the extent of my negotiation after that. Was it $2 billion? I don't Yeah, well, one strategy, depending on how much you like the position that you're in, say, well, I have this offer from this other one.
Oh my God, okay, that is
If I match that, that's position. Well, I'd like to work here, I'm gonna have to do this position.
Well, I believe that
everybody finished
But that really comes down to how loyal, not how loyal, but do you want to stay at the job you're at, or are you going
for the input,
debriefing
said
to see
that
what worked and
it
what
was good.
didn't.
Yeah, getting there instead of
Okay,
just sort of
getting
like.
there now and saying, let's do it again.
Somebody off guard, right?
What you guys
Well, first of all, saying that you go to the ultimate.
Yeah, no, that's like a last resort, I don't.
Not all the evidence, but the other thing lines up with that but also you say your evidence, and they don't address your evidence, and then you have more. And then they address that, and then you have more. It's like, I do this all day. I'm great, you know.
Well, it
Also,
could be,
so on the other side,
I forget what I actually asked for in the first place. $15,000,
where you're so maybe we're right, but it's the end of the conversation, it's like and long time to make sure what you're saying, anyway, so that's why I'm here, take the money. Yeah.
That kind of
This salary, whatever it takes.
generally the instrument, when you are taking the data, if you are picking up the instrument, and that particular takes the time.
I feel like that's successful. It's really hard to do that when you don't actually have like, okay, these are actually the numbers. It's like, yeah, I mean, it definitely might not be.
Many of us have a tendency to take them on.
That's more of like, if you're getting screwed over.
Because that will be more evidence just to jump and if I can show for example the numbers. And also expand the analysis already not just students, it's like I'm spending this amount of time grading. If I don't have students and I can spend that amount of time using the data, you know, kind of collecting more evidence.
You have the money, but because yes, you're saying I'm going to write another grant, right around, I'm going to start work, and I might not for love of
maybe you're better way of seeing this would be that I will find some more collaboration. And then if you go to
and you start getting to the end when you realize you don't have a quality, you're spending money on time. Or you don't have that much of your time to spend making you make it. I think so. So I feel like when you're negotiating what's truly the conversation. Okay, I can get this thing. For example, I'm not cheap with my it's something on social media. And you just keep wanting me out by the end of the semester. That's where you are. That's cheating my
But here's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do
exactly.
But yeah, like that was the whole point. I just wanted to make when I was
So for
I noticed right off the bat was when you started talking, you said, like, I think I'm ready for the next position. I think I can do this. When you say it like that, it doesn't come off across as confident. So that was just one thing I noticed. But the fact more convincing, I think you would have said, I'm ready for the next position. And these are the things, I mean, you said these are the things I'm undertaking, but it was very much so like,
Do you feel like
but I think coming up with a solution that may not be straight professor,
I would like to ask you this. I know
but this contribution also here is you know that it's at least 5 years now we never said
things like that, you know, to help because it's really everybody does then there's, as you said, some people do change. Either this, but it's expectations from my students who are like, oh, this is because the same way but you have TA expectations. You have I know. So there's a discussion with the advice of
and maybe that's where understanding that budget of time quality, understanding it that way is more helpful because if you're just like this,
I've been in like but I've never like seen it for other people.
so maybe there's some that's all I'm saying.
Mary's going to take away the food. If you want food or Coke or anything, please come and take it now. Okay, and we'll wait. And then there's a worksheet for your next negotiation that where I put down some points that you should consider before you go into a negotiation. So we are distributing it or database. So take a look at that. the other question that somebody raised was, when do you start negotiating? When do you start negotiating? Okay. And do you negotiate in your interview or after you make the offer, after they make an offer? I would say wait till they make the offer. Don't negotiate at the interview because they're sizing you up, you're sizing them, right? So